Hi everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about all things about the above ground pond. The pond acts as one of the main thermal masses within the growing dome, so it serves a functional purpose, but it can also be used to create its own thriving ecosystem. Whether you have a brand new dome and a brand new pond and you're trying to get it established, or you purchased a property that has a dome on it that has a pond that needs a little bit of help, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So first things first, we need to fill the pond. You want to consider where your water source is coming from. Whether you have well water or you're using city water, there are some considerations. Well water can have trace amounts of heavy metals, or in our area, which is Pagosa Springs, we tend to have a lot of sulfur in our water. With city water, it's often treated with chloramines, which is safe for humans, but not so great for fish. So what we want to do is once we've filled the pond within 2 to 3 inches of the top of the pond or the crossbar, depending on which pond style you have, we want to let that water sit for a minimum of 2 weeks before we add anything else to the water. Once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and test the water, and there's a few different methods to do this. So first off, we have some basic pond test strips. These are in the Thrive Gardening Kit, so if you want to purchase that as a beginner, it's a great way to get started. There are a series of little pads on these little strips, and you just swirl it around in your water. So on the back of this tube is going to be a little chart that shows you what your pH, your nitrites, and your general hardness levels are. These are all great to look at before you add any fish or plants into your water. Or if you have any major concerns or just want to do a full in-depth test before you go ahead and get started, you can purchase a test kit online. These will often come with some test tubes that you fill with water, and then there's a little bit of paperwork inside the box that you'll fill out, ship it off, and then you should have your test results back in 2 to 3 weeks. So next, we are going to talk about water circulation. There's a few different ideologies when it comes to circulating the water in your pond. You don't have to have any type of circulation if you don't want to. However, if you do want to add a little bit of circulation, you can add our solar water feature. The solar water feature is an option that you can add to your kit, or we also are releasing an electric version coming out very soon, so make sure that you are subscribed to our newsletter so that you don't miss that release. So one of the reasons that you may want to add water circulation into your pond is oxygenation, especially if you plan on adding fish. A water feature like this is going to help move the surface water, which has more oxygen, down deeper into the pond, and thus help keep the oxygen levels uniform throughout the pond. Another way that you can add oxygen into your pond is through air stones. This is a solar-powered version that we offer as, again, in addition to the kit, or you can add an electric version that's a little bit more high-powered. So these air stones will dangle into the pond and they will rest kind of on the bottom, and that is going to push, again, the oxygen from outside through the tube and the air stones and thus into the bottom of the pond, again, regulating the amount of oxygen throughout the entire system. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is plants. We do recommend covering the surface of the pond at least 70% with something, whether that's plants, a deck, you can utilize your shade cloth. There's a bunch of different options, but plants are one of the great ways to add the shade coverage and also a habitat for your fish. Floating plants are a great way to add coverage to the top of the pond, and they're fairly easy to maintain. Some of our favorites are water hyacinth, frogbit, water lettuce, you can add parrot feather, and there's also some really small ones like azolla and duckweed. However, those ones can take over really fast, and then they're a bit difficult to clean out of your pond. It's almost like putting glitter in there, so I like to stick to the larger plants. Floating planters are another great way to introduce plants into your pond. The plants that do best in floating planters are marginal or bog plants, but you can also plant terrestrial plants in them. Make sure that you check out our video all about floating island planters to get all of that information. Some of our favorites are iris, water celery, we have umbrella plants, monkey plants, you can also do taro. There's a bunch of different options. Make sure whatever you're planting is fish safe. So now that we've added all of the plants that we have, you can see we don't quite have 70% surface coverage. So what we're going to do is cover the pond with the shade cloth just to make up for that extra space. So we do want to try to push our plants all to one side because we don't want to cover them with the shade cloth. They still need the sun. Just going to kind of push these guys over. And then I'm going to just go ahead and pull the shade cloth over the pond surface. So now that we've covered the pond surface, We are going to end up purchasing some extra plants, and we're going to use some online retailers for that. There's multiple resources that I'll have linked in the description box down below, or you can utilize our Facebook groups to network with dome owners in your area to see if anybody has any extras. Keeping the surface covered is going to help us reduce the chance that an algae bloom might form. So now let's talk about fish. We've tested our water, we've added our plants, and now we want to add some fish into our pond. Goldfish and koi are going to be the most common. Now you do want to keep in mind that koi need 200 gallons of water per fish, and goldfish need 100 gallons of water per fish to reach 6 to 8 inches. So we don't want to overpopulate the pond to start with because they will reproduce. We also want to keep in mind the temperatures at which we are adding the fish and the temperature throughout the season. We should not be feeding our fish when the temperature is below 50 degrees because they can get sick. If you want to grow fish in your pond that you can use for consumption, we recommend yellow perch, bluegill, or catfish. Those guys are really hardy and they're going to be fine if the temperature swings a little bit. You can also grow tilapia, which is very common for people that use aquaponics systems. However, you do want to keep in mind that tilapia does need water temperatures above 50 degrees, and they also have a really high metabolism, so they're going to eat more and they're also going to produce more waste. Those are just some considerations. They do fine in the pond, but just make sure you do your research thoroughly before adding any type of fish. Snails can also make a great addition to your pond. We recommend Japanese trapdoor snails because they can help with algae control. However, they are invasive in some states, so make sure that you check all of your rules and regulations before introducing them into your pond. So now that we have our pond ecosystem established, let's talk maintenance. Maintenance should be fairly simple for your ponds once your ecosystem is all set. We do want to make sure that we clean out both the pump and the filter pads that are in the spillway at least every 6 months, if not more frequently. This is going to prevent the pump from burning out, and it'll also keep those filters nice and clean so they can actually filter out the algae. If you notice that you have any algae or any slime or anything building up on the sidewalls of your pond, you can utilize a soft microfiber cloth or a piece of an old t-shirt to just go ahead and wipe those edges down. If that's not enough, or if you unfortunately have string algae that you're dealing with, a brush like this will come in handy. You can use this, which is a refrigerator brush, or a dedicated new toilet brush to go ahead and twirl that string algae up like a piece of cotton candy that you probably don't want to eat. If you do decide that you want to do a deep clean, you can drain out your pond, and you will probably find that there's a layer of muck on the bottom. That muck makes great fertilizer, so go ahead and just spread that on your plants. Now, if you unfortunately drop something in your pond, don't panic. You can utilize a gripper tool or a magnet stick to get out your clippers or your shovel or whatever you've dropped in the bottom of the pond. If you have to get in the pond for any reason, you want to make sure that you drain the pond entirely is best, but partially is okay, and that you get in there with socks or bare feet because you don't want to puncture the pond liner. These rings are also a nice addition to the pond. These are made out of an irrigation tubing, or you could probably use PEX as well, something that's light enough to float on top of the water. These help to create a window so that you could easily see your fish, and they could also help because water hyacinth really like to be underneath the waterfall. So if you place one of these under your waterfall and put your hyacinth in there, they'll stay under that water. You will also want to probably invest in a couple of these nets. These will help you if you need to get any dead plants out of there, or if you have to try to catch your fish for some reason. Once your pond ecosystem has been established, you shouldn't really need to add any additives or amendments into the pond unless you notice that you have an algae problem or a muck problem. Growing Spaces does sell a pond care kit that comes with 3 different products. Stress Coat is a product that's going to make your tap water or whatever water source you're using safe for fish. It does have a little bit of aloe in there that helps build up the fish's slime coat and protect it from disease. We also have Simply Clear, which is going to help with any algae blooms that you might encounter. And then we have Pondzyme, which is a product that you can add to your pond to help with any muck buildup that you might encounter. Barley extract can also be used to help clean out your pond. This is a great natural way to clean out the pond water. Just make sure that you follow the instructions carefully. If you notice that your plants are yellowing, you probably need to add a little bit of nitrogen. Watering out of the pond is highly encouraged. The fish waste that's produced is actually great fertilizer for your plants and takes little to no effort. So go ahead and use that. Give your guys a little drink. Get creative with the way that you decorate the exterior of your pond. Just make sure that the majority of the pond is a dark color to help with the thermal mass. You can also get creative with the interior ecosystem and the plants and fish that you decide to add, and the way that you decorate your spillway. We hope that you found this information helpful in establishing your thriving pond ecosystem. Now you can kick back, relax, and enjoy your hard work. We would love to see what you've created. Whether they're photos or videos, you could share them with us on our socials that are all linked down below in the description box. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.